Hey, Mama. So, we are going to be talking about one is starting a podcast hard, but really focusing in on the biggest challenge you will face when starting your podcast. This is something that every client that I have worked with in supporting them with launching their podcast, this is a challenge that every single one of them has faced. This is a challenge I faced when I launched my podcast. So we are going to dive into that. So let's get into today's episode. Hey, Mama. Are you tired of feeling stressed and overwhelmed trying to grow your online business with your babies at home? You desire more flexibility in your day, allowing you to pour into your family, yourself, and your business without running yourself into the ground. Mama, you can build your dream business and do it in a way that fits your current season of life. And I'm going to show you exactly how. Welcome to the Mama Turned Mompreneur podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Singletary, daughter of the king, wife, mama of two, and life and business coach for mompreneurs. On this podcast, you will learn business strategies made for mamas just like you, who desire to be successful CEOs and fully present mamas without stress or overwhelm. So whether you're an entrepreneur who transitioned to a mompreneur or a mama turned mompreneur, I am here to support you. So grab your coffee, notebook, and pen, put in those earbuds, and let's dig in. Okay, so is starting a podcast hard? Well, if you've been listening to the episode series this week, it's not hard. Anybody can start a podcast, but there is a challenge that everyone faces, especially when you follow a podcast launch plan that has a strategy behind it, especially when you are using your podcast as part of your marketing strategy. So instead of really talking more about starting a podcast hard, because it's not, there's so many resources out there. Let's talk about the biggest challenge you will face when starting your podcast. And that challenge is episode 1. Episode 1 is the episode that should be about you, your why, the why behind your podcast. This episode is honestly the hardest episode for people to record. And you want to know why? It's because it is so hard for us to talk about ourselves and talk about ourselves in a way that really highlights our experience, our expertise, why we are the person to support people with a specific thing, and really diving into our why. And I like to think of episode 1 as being like your origin story. And it's hard because you have to be vulnerable. You have to talk about where you started and how you got to where you are now. And literally, probably each of like the podcast launch clients I've worked with, I have to have them re-record the episode because it's usually super short and they don't always talk about themselves. And I get it. Like even me, when I launched my podcast, recording episode 1 was so hard for me. I really had to sit down and reflect and think about, okay, what do I want to share with the world? What is my story? What got me to where I am today? And why am I so passionate about this thing that I'm doing? And so it's hard. It is hard. Talking about ourselves is so hard because we don't want to feel like we're bragging. We don't want to say the wrong thing. And a lot of times it can bring up that imposter syndrome and, questioning well, should I actually say this? Is this actually true about me? Is this something I actually can support them with? Am I actually the expert in this area? And it really is a mindset thing when it comes to recording this episode. But also I find that clients struggle with really talking about the personal side of things, like talking about who they are at their core, like what makes them tick, why they do what they do, their likes and different things. And this episode that's about you, where you are again highlighting your expertise and why you're creating this podcast, why you serve the clients that you serve, why you do the thing that you do. It's hard. Like, I find that clients struggle with really infusing their personality into it. And so it's like this episode, I find that most clients record last because they really have to take some time to reflect and think about what they actually want to share and everything. Now, the episodes where it's talking more about like the business side of things and what they actually do, their niche and everything, like really highlighting their expertise, they do that with no problem. But when it comes to actually talking about themselves, it's hard. It's like I said, it's really that mindset shift. And so that is why, like in the Get It Done week, I am really going to be supporting the mamas who are participating with this episode. We are really going to talk about like, what is it that your ideal listener needs to know about you? What can you share that's really going to build that deeper connection with them? And really talk through like their expertise and how they can highlight it in a way that gets their message across, but they also feel good sharing it. Because that's the other important thing is like, you want to feel good when you're recording this episode and sharing these things about yourself and everything. And I honestly feel like this episode 1 is like one of the most important episodes you can record because it really allows your listeners to hear your heart. It really allows them to get to know you on a deeper level. Now, yes, in your other episodes, you want to infuse your personality and, incorporate that personal touch where you're sharing, some of those things about your personal life. You don't have to, put all your business out there. But that episode 1, especially when it's somebody new coming to your podcast and they go back to your older episodes and they listen to that episode, that your origin story episode, that really helps with that nurturing process and building that deeper connection. I hear from so many people who are new to my podcast and they listen to episode 1 and they're like, oh my gosh, Andrea, I didn't know we had this much in common. Or, oh my gosh, I didn't know like that's how you started your business or, why you do what you do. Like they resonate so much with that episode because I'm being vulnerable. I'm sharing my heart. I'm sharing my why, my passion and everything. And they really get to see that. And it kind of sets the tone for the rest of your podcast content. It kind of gives them the context behind, why you, say the things that you say in future episodes and how you put things and why you share these different stories. So like, for instance, I am a mom. I talk about my kids a lot. I create this podcast content from the perspective of a mom running a business. And episode 1 gives them that context so they know up front, okay, Andrea is a mom first. She is running her business with her little ones at home. So it makes sense, like outside of like looking at the name of the podcast and that, they get that context from episode 1. And so it kind of frames things for future episodes where it makes sense why I talk so much about running a business as a mom. I talk about it through that lens because that is the core of this podcast. That is the core of who I am. I am a mom who is running a business with little ones at home. So it really sets the tone. It sets the stage for your future podcast episodes. You really have to work through that mindset piece and really get comfortable with being vulnerable. And like I said, this isn't to share every aspect of your life, every little detail, but you do want to infuse that personality. You do want to infuse that vulnerability to build that deeper connection because that One, it's going to get you comfortable with doing that in your podcast content, so future episodes. But that is how you attract your best fit, those ideal dream clients who share the same values as you, who really resonate with you. That is how you attract those people, because you are playing it out there saying, this is who I am. These are my values, my beliefs. This is how I operate. This is how I run my business. This is what it's like to work with me. It lays it out there so that way the people who resonate with it, they're going to pick up what you're putting down. And the people who don't, they're going to keep going about their business. That's what you need. If that is like, you want that type of support with making sure your episode 1 is doing what it's supposed to be doing, that you are really sharing what needs to be shared, join us for the Get It Done week. This is something, like I said, I am going to be really supporting the mamas who participate with, because I know how hard it is to record this episode, but it is such an important episode. Like, you cannot skip it. Like, even when I have new people come to work with me, like their monthly management clients, like their podcast has already been launched and I'm not the one that helped them launch it. If I see that they don't have a about them episode, I'm like, nah, that needs to be your next episode. We got to get that out there, because that is such an important piece of content that you can refer back to in future episodes. When new people come into your world and they really want to get to know you, you refer them to that episode to go and listen to, because that is going to lay it all out for them. So if you want support with that, join us for the Get It Done week. There is still time to sign up. We are getting started on Monday, January 22nd. So head on over to mamaturnedmompreneur.com/get it done. Grab your spot. Today is the last day to grab your spot. I am closing down the cart after today. So do not miss out on this, or you can wait till the next one. I'm going to be hosting these quarterly, but I'm telling you now, the price is going up next time. So if you want to get in at this price and launch your podcast in 7 days, go run, grab your spot. You can either pay in full. There are also, break it down in smaller payments where you make 4 monthly payments. You get to choose, but go grab your spot. Do not miss out on it. All right, Mama, I'll catch you in the next episode. Well, Mama, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to hang with me. If you enjoyed today's episode, will you do me a favor and follow the podcast and leave a review? Hitting that follow button and sharing your thoughts about the podcast are the best ways to ensure that other mamas like you find this show. Your review also lets me know if you're enjoying this podcast, so make sure to share your thoughts before you go. All right, Mama, I'll catch you in the next episode.